Welcome to the Open Mic Podcast Show with Mike Midgley.
Hey, and welcome to the Open Mic Podcast. On today's episode, I'm excited to be covering the topic of key strategies for business development, a strategy that we all need. Without customers, we don't have any business. Today's influencer guest is Donnie Boivin, the founder and success champion, and Donnie is based in Fort Worth, Texas. Nearly got that wrong, Donnie, there. I had to self-correct me with multiple practice. Welcome to the show. It's an absolute honor to have you on, and thank you so much for taking the time out. I think your schedule is equally as busy as ours, so welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it, man. I've been looking forward to this one ever since I heard about your guys' show, what you're into. So thanks for having me on, man. Looks like it's going to be a fun, good time with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really highly recommend that you head straight over to Donnie Boivin. And I'm going to spell that for you because I always got that wrong. It's DONNIEBOIVIN.com. For those listening on the apps or if you're watching on the blog, the show, the links are going to be in the show. You can also follow Donnie on Facebook, Donnie Boivin Success. Donnie does a ton of LinkedIn Lives. I highly encourage you to head over and take a look at those as well. You can just search and connect with Donnie at Donnie Boivin after the usual extension on LinkedIn. So check those out. We will put the show links in there. And if you've got any questions for Donnie, just use the hashtag #TheOpenMic. Shoot us a message. We'll get you connected if you want a personal referral in there. We know troubles to do that. So let's just learn a little bit about Donnie. Let's find out about his expertise, what he's into, what he's up to. This particular show is about business development, the strategy, Donnie, but, sales has been a big part of your life. Why sales? But also love to, as a fellow podcaster, love to know a little bit more about the Success Champions podcast, which I've had a good listen and tune into. Sounds amazing. Tell us a little bit why sales and a bit more about that podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I didn't want to be a sales guy. I did 4 years in the United States Marine Corps, and when I got out, I joined up with a buddy of mine, his dad, who had an HVAC, heating and air conditioning company.
Yeah, HVAC,
Yeah. And, I started off climbing under houses and up in attics in Texas summers so it's
hot.
piping hot. Yeah. Just miserable. And I was on the verge of quitting because I just didn't want to do that kind of work anymore when my best friend's dad, who owned a company, looked at me and said, "Well, why don't you get in sales?" And I said, "Well, what sales?" And he's like, "Well, I'm going to hand you some flyers. You're going to go knock on some doors and let's see what happens." And,
school.
Yeah. So I started it for a little while, was absolutely miserably horrible at it. Had a lot of failures out the gate, but I started figuring it out. And long story short, I ended up taking that company from about a $250,000 residential company to about a $3.5 million commercial HVAC company. And all because I learned early on, I just didn't care what other people thought about me. And so I grew that business, and to summarize a very fun, long sales career, I got recruited up to St. Louis. I did franchise sales for a number of years. Yeah. We were bought out by a Fortune 500. They determined my position was redundant. I got corporate downsized after we'd grown that business from $80 to $100 million.
And that's harder. Just to sort of cut across that, Donnie, for the listeners out here, the show for entrepreneurs, it's all about the entrepreneur's gap, bridging the gap between the idea and the successful implementation. And I don't mean this flippantly, but getting the business to $1 million is pretty easy. 3 to 5, it gets 10 to. But when you get in the business from 80 to 100 million, that's a harder push because the saturation, the competition, the mechanics, the obstacles. Sometimes you may be publicly floated or external shareholders or the aggressive competition. So I just want to sort of stop there, and because it's pretty profound, Donnie. You sort of threw that away as I just threw 80 to 100 million, but that's a tough hike, and for you guys out there who have not done that sort of level of growth, it can sort of be, people think, it's always hardest to make that first million. But realistically, getting that up, it takes a special type of skill. And, I've got a couple of questions around that afterwards,
sure.
But please carry on that, Donnie. Sorry to cut a question, but it's really important.
All good. So after that stunt, I came back to Texas, and it was not long after 9/11. I really thought, being a pretty good sales guy, that I was just going to fall into a new career.
Yeah.
But I had the title of director, and I was 5 years old at this point. And nobody would hire me because they always thought I was over. And so I was trying to do everything. Couldn't find a job, and I went for 6 months, and my nest egg was going away. And so all my friends from high school were waiting tables and bartending. So I became a bartender. Yeah. And I did that for this is after my big stunt in corporate America, right? Now I'm waiting tables and the lifestyle that comes with that. Yeah. And I tell everybody it was probably my best sales training position in the world was being a bartender, because you got to deal with people at their best and their worst. And, I got about 27 years old and I was like, okay, this lifestyle is not meant for me. I got to go back and get a big boy job. Yeah. And so I switched all my schedule to a day bartending shift because I knew I'd meet executives. Well, one day I had a lady came in. She was a lunchtime regular of mine. And she said, hey, I just got back from a conference. And at that conference, the guy was talking about his number one sales rep was his server at a restaurant. And as soon as I heard him say that, I was coming gunning for you because I know your story. I know where you've been. She said, I have a new division in my company I need built. Would you come in and consider building it? And I was like, let's give it a go. She goes, there's only one problem. I said, what's that? She goes, I can't pay you anything. It's straight commission. I'm like, let's try. I've already been a bartender for 2 years, right? So there's it's not a big risk for me because I can just fall right back into bartending. Yeah. So I jump in, get on board. Over 7 years, we grew that to a $6.1 million division for her, and had a lot of fun, learned a lot, but then the recession hits. Yep. And, you go through the recession and I lost a lot of business, not necessarily because of the downturn. I lost a lot of business because a lot of it went overseas to China. Yeah. And, China was doing a lot of the stuff and just longer turn times and everything. So right around 2011, my wife and I decided, okay, it was time to make another move. What was going to be the next great adventure? And I just happened to be on LinkedIn. And for whatever reason, I typed in sales training. And I didn't want to be a sales trainer. That wasn't something I wanted to do. But I typed it in. And there was a gentleman hiring for a sales role. And I filled out all the stuff. I sent him kind of all my bibliography of everything I've done. And he invites me in. He sits me down. And he goes, all right, so why do you want to work here? I said, well, let me tell you. I don't want to be a sales trainer. I don't want to be the guy on stage. I said, I just want to go sell stuff. He goes, good, because I don't need a sales trainer. I need a sales guy. Did that for 7 years and, had a blast, had a lot of fun with it. Ultimately picked a partner with that company, was in a position to buy the whole thing out. Amazing. And one night at dinner, out with my business partner, who I still love dear to my heart, sat down. He looked me dead in the eye and he said, Donnie, thank God you're my retirement plan. And for 2 seconds, I had to pause, and a light bulb and my whole career flashed before my eyes when I realized at that moment I'd spent my entire journey living somebody else's dreams. Yeah. Amazing. 15 days later, I walked away from it all and launched my business. Amazing.
And that takes some guts, doesn't it?
Dude.
There's a lot of elbows in life, as I call them. And a ton of bricks. You go around there, you're going straight ahead, you think everything is good, you see those red bricks, and then, how do you get round them, through them, under them? And a lot of people keep going, like I've done the same as you. I did that for a number of years, but then I think I've had enough of this, I'm going to go out on my own. But then suddenly it takes that ton of bricks to drop on you. And it's just something that, like you say, it resonates so much that just one little thing that somebody says that goes bang, and it just flicked. And, it's sort of a little bit like in the movies, isn't it? Where, the guy just breaks down, maybe, he's been fired that day. Somebody goes home and breaks into his house, kills his family, or whatever it is. And he just goes berserk. It's the Liam Neeson or the 24 style thing. But it just snapped. And, so hopefully, nobody dies out of it. But the point I'm saying is absolutely right. And, how did you feel? Because am I right in saying that for that 2 minutes you paused when you said you were in retirement plan? Am I right in saying, if it's a similar experience that I've had in a similar situation like that, where the conversation keeps going, but you're tuned out, and all you're doing is replaying that back in your mind, and then you're sort of saying, sorry, can you repeat that again, whatever, and then you're not really paying attention because you've got over the initial shock or the initial light bulb moment, but then it keeps replaying, and then it replays in the way on the car. You struggle to get to bed at night. You get up next morning, then you start looking for angles. Is that what happened, or was it?
No, totally. So for me, it was really wild because I knew He was trying to pay me the ultimate compliment.
Yeah.
He's a good guy, and I still love him to death.
Yep.
He was really trying to say thank you. It just came out the wrong way. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how he meant that statement.
Yeah.
Right. And internalizing what he actually said. And I got very empathetic with him because I understood that he was, saying this to say thank you for everything that I'd done for his company and how far we'd grown and the people he'd brought on and everything that we'd done. But in the same token, I couldn't erase the phrase, thank you for being in the retirement plan, because because it fully was sinking in that I'd really just spent my entire career making other people wealthy.
Yeah.
And it was, I think the final thought that I had before I realized the craziness I was about to do was that for 40 years, I hadn't bet on me. Yeah. I hadn't gone all in on me. Yeah. I was on a trajectory to do always what somebody else told me to do. And I'd never thought about that. Yeah. From the Marine Corps to every sales role, somebody else set my vision, somebody else set my quotas, somebody else set my, trajectory, and as long as I hit my numbers, life was good.
Yeah.
And
sometimes when I started doing that, I had a similar situation from 21 to 25, and then, you build up and then you get into a position, you earn the money. And very similar happened to me in 2000. I walked into a business partner exactly the same. I just had enough. There's slightly different circumstances. I said, I'm leaving. It wasn't necessarily something he actually said, but it was something that he actually did over a number of periods. But that light switch went on and it went on and it just happened. And sometimes you get in the way because you think, I'm earning good money. I'm putting money away. Mm-hmm. I've got a nice holidays. The houses are getting better. The cars are getting better. The holidays are getting better. The cover of the credit card was getting better. All these things were a distraction, but they were a negative distraction because if I'd focused on what I was doing earlier, maybe, right. It's easy to look back and say, hey, should I have done this? I'm more than happy with everything that I've achieved and some, and continue to learn and keep developing. But, it does take that sort of moment. But I just promised the listeners I'd take you back about that 80 to 100 million hike. Mm-hmm. Just realize what industry you were in and who the audiences and how did you do it? Because
and just for the record, it wasn't me alone.
No, it was a team.
Yeah, part of a team. So I worked for a company called Medicine Shop International, and it was a pharmacy franchise team. Yeah. So they sold franchises to the students coming out of school, or maybe your pharmacist who'd been working for like a Walgreens or CVS for over a number of years.
In-house type of thing.
Yep. And so we took them into the private chain, not chain, but private pharmaceutical locations. And a couple of things that we had done with this company is all the way up to $80 million. They had never really done any sort of demographic market research. Wow. So they didn't know who their target avatar clientele was. So me and my team went in and we started breaking down all the locations and figuring out. And for years, this company had been focused on, from a marketing aspect, the senior community. What we found was there was a larger audience with the mother and children ratio. They were filling just as many prescriptions as the seniors were. So we started changing the demographics, started going after a younger franchisor, and started targeting the schools more. And in changing and positioning all this, it gave us a whole different, all of a sudden we became the cool pharmacy franchise, run your own business, and we just repositioned it in the marketplace. And it took off, and that's what got the eyeballs of Cardinal Health on us, because and so they picked us up, and then that's when the redundancy and everything. Yeah. But it came back to going something that businesses should do out the gate is understand who that key target audience is. Absolutely. And once we came back and kind of refined that, which was a cool process, and we ran some national commercials. We sponsored the St. Louis Cardinals. There was some really cool things that came along with it, but it was going back to that basic business 101 stuff you should have done that they hadn't done all the way up to an $80 million company. It was kind of crazy.
I mean, there's two things there. You know, wow, they get to £80 million or $80 million, should I say, and never even sort of even go through it in any detail. Wow, so that's like, wow. You know, you think about how did they get there, and what was the lost opportunity cost by not doing that earlier,
right,
or whatever. But secondly, for the listeners out there, you know, it's rare that we get through a season on the podcast where we don't on 2 or 3 episodes. What we now season 4, season 5 coming up nearly, and it's rare that we don't discuss something about personas or avatars or ideal customer profile demographics. Call it what you will, but if you haven't got yours nailed down, head over to our blog, blog.thesuccessof.io. There's a ton of research on there and videos about building personas. There's a great one at HubSpot as well. HubSpot personas, just search that as a tool that you can build it out there as well. But you know, if you think about it, a lot of companies can be sometimes complacent. We're 80 million, you know, we're going to sort of keep going, we're going to be steady. But you know, just by doing something, what really is, as Donnie said, a business 101 process, i.e. the basics, at the 80 million stage, you put another 20 plus, and then eventually that company got acquired. So, you know, what I'd love to do is challenge you on the podcast today. Go and find the repositioning strategy. Go and find something that maybe you've overlooked. Go and have a look at that in your business. Sit down with your team. You know, shut the phones off, turn the screens off, get a whiteboard out. Just say, what have we missed? What could we do better? And sometimes take a look back and see if you can do it. Let me know your feedback. Use the hashtag #TheOpenMic. Drop us a comment on the blog or the podcast. And if you need any guidance, I'm happy even to critique it for you. You know, I may not have all the answers, but I'm happy to give you some input on it. But great, and thanks for sharing that, Donnie.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely awesome. And today, you got great success working from a little small farm in Texas, while running an international business, which is amazing. But it hasn't always been that way, as we've said. You know, you've risen up, but you then took the jump, and but you was going to quit before finding podcasting. And just, you know, tell us a little bit more, because all the success stories I ever see, and you know, when I look in the mirror and look at mine and my roller coaster, there is so many, you know, peaks and highs, and then there's the lows of the valleys. And I always love to learn, you know, not because I'm sadistic for it, Donnie, but I love to know what the failures were and things, because it shares with the listeners, hey, that guy, look what he's achieved now. And he was there. He's like me now. And, you know, and if there's a listener out there struggling, it gives that hope. It gives that motivation to share the failures equally as much as the successes. Share us a little bit more about that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love telling this story because when I launched my business in my local hometown, Fort Worth, Texas, I was really, really known in the sales training game. And I'd spent a lot of time building that personal brand up, that if anybody thought about sales training, my name rose to the top, right? That was my big focus. And I worked with some amazing companies during that time. So I was kind of cocky enough to think that when I opened my own business, that it was just going to take off, man. You know, it's like put the shingle up on the door and the world was going to open up and I was going to be just miraculously killing it in business. Well, yeah, that didn't happen. I opened my doors and luckily had, you know, some quick clients that did come over with me very, very quickly to do some coaching and consulting work, which was absolutely brilliant. But it gave me a kind of that sense, false security of, you know, this was the right move and everything else. Well, excuse me, right up to about the 3-month mark, I realized that my business was not in a sustainable, you know, business. And about the 6-month mark, I was looking at my wife and having one of the toughest discussions I've ever had when I was telling her, babe, we're fixing to lose everything we got. Yeah. You know, and up to that point, Mike, we had built our dream farm. I had my dream Victorian style house on there. I built a second house on the property for my mother-in-law. You know, we had the animals and we were taking care of everything. But at 6 months, you know, my business wasn't growing. I was actually going backwards and I was depleting all my funds. So as I'm telling my wife we're fixing to lose everything, she, and since this is a clean show, I won't use the exact words that she said, but let's just say she told me to get off my duff and go sell something. Yeah. And so I started fighting and climbing and clawing my way through. But in April of 2017, I was giving a speech and I told my wife, you know, I kind of gave the ultimatum to my business. And I said, you know, I'm going to leave it all on the stage, give it everything I got. And they were inviting me in to speak about sales and business development. Yeah. I said, I'm just going to leave it all. And I remember walking off that stage, just plumb exhausted, wore out from you know, everything. Yep. And as I'm waiting, you know, to meet up with my couriers and things that were going to move me around, a gentleman walked up to me And he said, Donnie, I so enjoyed your story. I so enjoyed your passion. Would you come tell your story on a podcast? And I said, what the heck is a podcast?
300 shows later.
Right. And so I went on his show. The day after the show aired, one of his audience reached out to me and became a client. Yeah, I went, amazing. Oh my goodness, you can go on shows and pick up business. Yeah. So longer story short, I went on one show as a guest. The host was absolutely miserable. I've told the story 100 times, so you can find it out there. But I was like, dude, if this guy can have any sort of success whatsoever, I'm launching my own show. So May of 2018, I launched Success Champions. 3 months in, I hit the top 200 charts in iTunes. 5 months in, I hit the top 200 in business. 3 months in, top 200 overall. 5 months in. So I still got the screenshot of my show sitting next to, Tim Ferriss, right?
Oh, amazing.
And then, that is what really helped me figure out that kind of up to that point, I was living and running my business as an employee and not a business owner.
Yeah, it makes a big difference, that mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah. I kept trying to create a job for myself. It was sell a deal, do the deal, build a deal, and then, oh crap, I got to go do another one. It was so task oriented.
Famine and feast as well.
Yep. And you're exactly right. It was this constant ups and downs, and podcasting gave me structure, right? I had to, because I was interviewing some of the biggest names in the world, so I had to figure out what's the operational flow, what's the process. I had to bring on teammates, which, made me, now I've got to figure out how to teach somebody to do the things I need them to do and then keep them motivated in that. And so I started creating systems and processes, and this is what finally started making me realize, okay, now this is how you scale. And I tell everybody, podcasting saved my business. And to this day, I still claim that.
Yeah, and it's a great story, and thanks for sharing with us. And, obviously you mentioned right at the top of the show, 4 years in the Marine Corps, so discipline is it's not new to you. That must be one hell of a, you straight out of college or something, straight into the Marine Corps, and it's one hell of a wake-up call. But business is like that as well, isn't it, with the roller coasters? And it doesn't matter how experienced you are. Here's a quick story, I'll share it back with you. I got to 2005. I'd been in business over 10 years. I'd had 2 six-figure exits by then. And we put our business on the non-quoted PLC market in the UK, like a floated company, a public company in the UK. So I'm sat there, I'm 35 years old. I've got 2 six and a 7-figure refinance and exit out of it. And I'm thinking like king of the hill. I'm 3 years before the global recession here, just a time and date stamp this. And I got introduced to a gentleman called Bill McGraw. And Bill McGraw is from you guys in the States, Waterstone's books, Barnes & Noble books. But here in the UK is a serial FTSE 100 chairman, British Gas, Asda, which is Walmart equivalent in the States. And he was the chief executive of Wix DIY chain for UK and Europe. So a serious, FTSE 100, Inc. 500 or Inc. 100 sort of chairman and an exec. And he, I actually parked too many cars in his car park outside, and he wrote me a letter to complain, because that's when he wrote letters, not sent emails to a degree. And I could have said, oh yeah, got angry about it, but I actually went and knocked on the guy's door and said, look, I'm really sorry, can I help? We sat there and we had 90 minutes. And for 3.5, 4 months, I actually begged him to come and be our non-exec, because he was sort of semi-retired. He was more property development in his business. And he eventually joined, crazy enough to come and get involved with us. But, you talk about how podcasting saved your life. I thought I knew how to run a business. I thought I knew how to grow a business. I thought I knew how to scale a business. And to a degree, I had some successful exits as well. So I thought I could exit a business. But it wasn't until I started working with Bill that I really started to understand business. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, I've been the luckiest guy. I could have walked across the street at rush hour, blindfolded, drunk, and not got run over. That's how it felt, that I managed to get to this level of success without no disasters really. And it's funny you say about franchising. We did a lot of that as well in our business. But you get that day of awakening. You get that shock and that mindset and that discipline to focus. You use the podcast. We're very process driven with our podcast. But for me, it was breaking down the company departments, understanding whether they're profit makers or cost protectors or wealth creators, wealth protectors, all these type of things, and all the new strategies. And, come in and tell me more. And I couldn't get enough knowledge. And I'm sure Bill got so fed up with us asking all the time. But, he came in and he was so polite and he was amazing. And he totally and utterly changed the way I look at business. And we were going to go on a Series B and various things. And of course, the world crashed and the world went bust and the banks went bust and things like that a few years later. But it's amazing. And so when you talk about mindset, from the marine side, Donnie, and, serious discipline, slightly off topic and script here, but advice and guidance for an entrepreneur today. Maybe it doesn't matter whether they're just getting started, they were like me, thinking I'd sort of made it, if you want to call it that, cockiness or arrogant or whatever, and then you really knew nothing. What sort of mindset does the modern entrepreneur need? And what do you think that really makes it work and successful today?
Well, I'm the anti-grind guy. I don't like the work, the 18, 20-hour days. I do believe that once you become a business owner, you never turn off the business.
Yep.
It's always there, but you've got to have the self-discipline to be in the moment. So if you're hanging out with your family, hang out with your family.
Yeah.
And separate the two out. There's no such thing as work-life balance, because once you have the stress and love running a business, it's always going to be at the forefront.
Yeah.
You just can't turn that off. But I think grit's got to be probably the biggest thing somebody's got to do and be an entrepreneur, followed quickly by patience.
Yeah.
Because and the third would be, don't make yourself an island, because that was the other thing that was hurting me early on. Was similar to you, I was trying to figure out how to do this all on my own, and I thought I was doing okay, but I wasn't. And it wasn't until I started surrounding myself with other mentors, same like you, and I was like, holy crap, I was doing
so much more.
A lot. Yeah. And it mentally became more complicated, but it also became easier.
Yeah.
Because the right systems came in place.
Correct.
And I was able to find the right teams and stuff, but if you're just starting out, patience has got to be the number one. Because everybody reads these stories of some Yahoo supposedly, created a 7-figure business in 3 months. And
what a load of bull.
Yeah. Anybody who's been in the game for a little while, unless you're raising capital, right? The only way you're going to get that fast, that quick, is if you're raising capital behind it. Otherwise,
that brings a different pressure, though. When the venture capital, you've got to suddenly answer. You've suddenly got to. Here's something that I always use. I don't know if you've come across this saying, but when you're a private company, it's a little bit like you going into your backyard and digging a hole in your nice new lawn. Now, okay, the wife may stick out or the husband may stick out the window and say, what on earth are you doing, Donnie? But, ultimately it's your lawn. You can dig a hole in it and do whatever you want. But something when you start taking public money or VC money, it's like jumping over the neighbour's garden fence and digging a hole in his lawn. And he's going to have something more strongly to say about that. So you've got to be a little bit more cautious. And that brings a whole host of pressure. So all those who are thinking about, I'm just going to go a Series A or a Series B, it'll take you a lot harder and a lot longer and probably than you think it will do. And it'll be,
Well, I had a mentor of mine, because I was talking about trying to go that route at one point, and he's like, look, have you ever had a bunch of uncles and grandfathers around you that just hated because they were always trying to tell you how to run your life and business? Yeah, go ahead, borrow money.
That's it. And you suddenly got a new boss. Things like that. It's interesting to hear that. But it's great.
But that's a perfect analogy, though. But I would tell most people as they get in the game is go quickly to break away from that employee mindset. The employee mindset is very task driven.
Yeah.
It's let me find this thing, let me get this thing done. With a business owner mindset, something I had to teach myself is, if I think I have to get it done, that's a job. That is not me running a company.
Yeah.
I have to think about, what's the process for it to get done? Who's responsible for getting that done? How do I outsource that? How do I find something else and put the systems and processes in place? Because the more things that I put on myself, the more my business functions like a job.
Yeah, it does.
And growing up in the self-help world, I read a lot of books and everything else. And guys like Brian Tracy would say things like, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, and all that kind of stuff. And in running your business, throw that crap in the trash. Because if it's up to you, then you've created a job. It's got to be, your job is to play puppet master. And what I mean by that is you've got to create the environment that people want to come get aboard with your vision and help you get to where you want to go.
Absolutely.
And if you got that vision that's so strong that lights other people up, like Steve Jobs had one of the greatest visions in the world, and he said, we're going to build computers for people like us. Yeah. And dude, as soon as he said that, the droves of people moved over to Apple products because they knew it. And then the people wanted to work for him because they could buy into his vision. So the biggest thing is you've got to create a solid vision that other people want to get a part of, be a part of, so you can actually scale and grow your business. If you're the only person that can do that function inside your business is not scalable.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
You got to create the processes and systems, which comes back to grit, because you're going to get punched in the face by life so many times.
You got it.
And I think for me, that was probably the biggest shock. You know, I thought, you know, I've taken a lot of licks in the sales games. I've negotiated $1 million deals, you know, multi-million dollar, you know, all kinds of things, but nothing. One of my mentors told me, he said, Donnie, when you launch your business, the biggest thing you're going to discover is you.
You really are.
Yeah. And that was probably the most eye-opening is I realized that even all the risk I thought I took up to me owning my business, I really thought that I knew who the heck I was. But what I realized, you know, those 20 years of my sales career, I'd never really bet on me. Yeah. I really kind of played this easy path.
It's a great thing. Love it.
You know, and it was a very eye-opening moment, and it was that first time that I realized, okay, I'm stacked up against me. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah, let's see how it plays. You either become Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde, and there's a bit of that going off all the time. Yeah. Like you say, it never leaves you when you become, and start to grow your company. But it's interesting about the scalability, the systems. And I think, you touched on Steve Jobs at Apple there, and he always used to say about, so you never hire anybody smarter than you, hire, and then tell them what to do, hire somebody who's more smarter and let them show you the way type of thing. And I'm sure that people are going to correct me on the
yeah, you're getting a couple of tweets or something on that one.
That's not, he said something different. Well, it was something like that. It's live. It takes
the content,
together. Right? Yeah, you get the gist. Whatever from there. But you're right, and it's absolutely amazing. Thanks for sharing your bio and your backstory. There's a lot of things that I'm smiling like mad, and there's a lot of things I'm gritting like that. Because I think I make those same mistakes. Right. I'm glad it's not just me and things like that. But let's move into the topic a little bit more. The key strategies for business development. As I say, 20 odd years in sales. It's okay saying that you never bet on you, and I get that. But my retort to you there, Donnie, is there's a time when everybody's point comes, and maybe for personal reasons, family reasons, job reasons, you just got comfortable. It doesn't matter. The point is that you actually made that jump, and getting focused on that business development. And whilst you've had the roller coaster like we all have there, tell us a little bit more about the best approaches in sales, with B2B, B2C, whatever it would be. People listening out there, I've not got my sales development or my business development strategy right. Share with us some of the pros, cons, hacks, call it what you want, that, people should be looking at around that.
Yeah. So let me preface where all this comes from. So I put a little context for people. When I did sales training, I'd get these senior sales reps that were kind of your middle of the road as far as their hierarchy, where they stood in their sales company. And these guys, when I'd sit down with them, I'd ask them, where do you attribute your success to? And they're like, well, I've got 20 years in sales. And then I would always ask, then why are you in the middle of the road? Why aren't you the number one rep in the company? And they're like, well, blah, 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 excuse this, blame the company, bad territory. And I would, as politely as I could, look right back at this person who was probably 20 years my senior and say, look, you don't have 20 years experience. You have year one repeated 20 times.
Yeah.
You never leveled up, and you never evolved. Okay. So what I found for most people, business development is all the strategies and activities that lead to the sales call.
Yeah.
Right. So it's everything you do out front that gets you to that sales conversation. For me,
pedestal, ready to go.
Yep. So for me, sales is nothing more than a conversation. And if you put anything more on that sales side of things, you're going to get your teeth kicked in because you're going to bring emotions to the table.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a conversation with an outcome. So when you focus on the business development side of your company, you have to actually look at what are the activities, not that I'm necessarily doing as a business owner, but that my team, my people, my group, everybody who's surrounded, my connections, my network, my everything, what are all of those things that they're doing that we can employ tangible assets to get us set up for more sales conversations?
Yeah.
Right? Because
so it's the
sales,
groundwork, it's the prep, it's the foundation work.
Absolutely.
Call it whatever you want, the ground sheet on the tent, call it whatever you want.
Yep, absolutely. So the big things, your typical sales, cold calls or networking, those type of things, your traditional sales, business development behaviors.
Yeah.
But we focus a lot on how do you get awareness? Or in the words of somebody like Gary Vee, how do you grab attention? So when we're sitting down and we're working with a business or a company, we're focused on what are they doing from a positioning in the marketplace to get more eyeballs on them. So are they being interviewed on podcasts? Are they, being interviewed on local televisions? Are they speaking on stage? I think everybody in some sort of sales business development role should be speaking on stage, right?
Amazing.
Because it's the funniest thing in the world. You can take somebody who's a complete idiot, has no business talking about any subject, put them on stage and everybody's like, oh my God, they're brilliant. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with the content coming out of their mouth. It has everything to do with the people who think that person's brilliant are weighing in on they're doing something they couldn't do themselves.
Yeah. And they automatically feel elevated.
Yes.
Or they see them as elevated as an expert.
Absolutely.
It's really, really funny. I did a keynote for our friends at Digital Marketer at Austin, in London. Dennis Yu was on the bill, and various other people on there. And I did like the afternoon keynote slot for DM at their agency in London. And I've been doing public speaking since my first one was 2003. I've not been as active as I would have liked recently, just other schedules or other commitments. But when you look at the audience, these are highly successful people in that space. And you go on and you pick a subject and, they are mesmerized, and all the speakers did a fabulous job on the day. All different contents, different executions, different styles. Some of us, like me, very energy, motivated, driven, passionate, actually telling them off, pull that rocket out of you know what, and get on with it, and things like that. And others a little bit more conservative delivery, but it doesn't matter. The value and the content. And every single speaker, every single session, the audience are writing. And I always say, if you get one thing out of the session that you can take away that makes a difference to your life, my job's done. You don't have to take 30 things out of it, but you're so right. And I don't know if it's the same over in the States, but certainly here in the UK, I don't see the companies giving the BDMs or the BDRs or, those account managers that opportunity. It's normally, I'm the CEO, I'm the man who should be the public figure. Do you see a lot more of it in the States? And
no. Two things that I think more companies should be doing is allowing their people to show up in social media, allowing them to get on stages, because, and what I think companies are scared of. So like with my last business partner, I kept telling, we're not selling, this sales training, we're selling each other. Yeah. So we got to go build our personal brands in the marketplace. Correct. And his pushback was always, but this is our system. We're selling the system. I said, the system is the result they get from working with me. Yeah. But I got to go sell me first. Yeah. And I think, I think a lot of companies are so worried that the people are going to misrepresent the company or something, but they need to get over it, because in this day and age, with technology moving as fast as it's ever moved, social media is now become the internet.
It's light speed, isn't it?
Yeah, it's insane. And, imagine a manufacturing rep for whatever company getting access to LinkedIn Live. He can literally talk to thousands and hundreds of thousands, by going live on LinkedIn, which does nothing to bring brand awareness. Okay, so put some brand standards on them. Like I use LinkedIn Live. There's a program I use called StreamYard. Yep. And StreamYard allows me to put my logo, my name on there. So put some brand standards on it, they have to put the company logo up there, right? Put their name,
put the web address in the bottom corner or something like
absolutely.
that, or your direct dial or your email or whatever.
Yep, absolutely. And let them get out there, because what you're going to find is there's going to be a shift, and I feel it coming. Is your old school kick in the door sales guys are going to slowly start going away, and your middle of the roads that understand and embrace technology are the ones that are going to rise to the top, because they don't want to go kick in the doors, but they can sit in front of a computer and have conversations on social media, LinkedIn, do reach out. And guys, you can put statistics, you can put metrics, you can measure, and you can quantify those activities as long as you're monitoring it. So don't think it's a Wild West and they're just going to go off on their own. Put some metrics behind those sales behaviors and start measuring and get effective with those. And you're going to be amazed at what you find up. But the biggest thing is, the owner of the company needs to become the face of the company.
Yep. The
salespeople need to be taught that they are running their own business inside this larger corporation.
It's a sell, isn't it?
Yes.
We used to say in our business that, imagine you've got your own P&L, your own profit and loss account, you've got your own accountability. Bring yours on. And if everybody brings the baton home, it's a little bit like in the Olympics, the 100 meters relay where they pass the baton. Everybody rings the bell and brings on their own departmental or individual P&L. The business is going to thrive, and all the other benefits that come out of that. But you still, even in the most positive culture business, you see a lot of it in software companies. Trendy offices and culture statements on the wall. I'm not right or wrong. It works for you, it doesn't work for you, whatever it would be. But you still get those disbelievers and those skeptics that, it's as if, no, that won't work. It's just they want to fail. And I don't understand why that is, because surely everybody wants to get further ahead, whether it's for yourself or for the company or whatever it would be. But hey, it just doesn't seem to be the case sometimes. But yeah, I agree with you. Everybody should treat it as their own, profit and loss, or their own little business. Business unit, absolutely. Yeah.
And the more you get people to understand that they're running their own business and that the company is their number one client, and you always take care of the number one client, the more you get people to embrace that, the faster and quicker your business will go, because it's no longer are they selling for you. They're selling for their own lifestyle. They're selling for their own freedom. They just happen to be an employee underneath your umbrella. And the more you get them to buy into that, the more productive they are, the more honored they are, and the more they feel like it's something that they can control. And man, they'll take off. It's really, really cool. Yeah, and you'll also find out quickly who you shouldn't be on your team as well.
Very much so. The spotlight drives down.
Yes,
and it's like, ding, absolutely. We talked earlier about the podcasting. As podcasters, it's not for everybody. I get that. But, a lot of people in my network will say to me, Mike, how do you get these guests on? How do you get these high-level guests on? And what do you do on the show? And, how do you do this and how do you do that and whatever? So, I should get around to writing a blog about it. I started as a content creator, and Jamie tells me, you met Jamie earlier, the producer, and he tells me all the time, write this blog. And I said, no, I'll get around to it. But podcasting, hosting successful shows, highly successful, top 100, 200 show. Do you have like an essential checklist for those looking to get started in podcasts? Any rule of thumbs that you'd say, hey guys, don't go and jump over the wall without this parachute or this list?
Well, a couple of things. It depends on where they are in their journey. If they're just a sales guy, then go 100% start a podcast about something you can geek out on. Yeah. I had a life insurance guy come to me once upon a time when I first launched my business, and he said, I know the whole sales thing. He goes, but I'm dying. I just can't grow a business. And I said, well, what'd you geek out on when you were a kid? He said, I race go-karts. I'm like, what do you mean you race go-karts? And he goes, no, we race these go-karts that went like 80 and 90 miles an hour.
Wow.
You're flipping insane, right? So I said, and you sell life insurance? He goes, yeah, absolutely. I said, okay, so why are you struggling so bad in growing that book of business? He goes, because nobody wants to talk about life insurance. Yeah. I said, so when's the last time you've been out to a go-kart track and raced? And he goes, oh, it's been a couple of years. I said, I bet nobody at a go-kart track racing at 80 and 90 miles an hour could ever have a need for life insurance.
Not.
Yeah. He's like, dude, I hate you. So he went out, started going out to the racetracks, and long story short, a few years later, he's got his own car, he's got sponsors, he's raced, and he's still selling life insurance and killing it because he found his people. And what I mean by his people is people that geeked out on the same thing as he geeked out on. So if you're looking to start a podcast and you are a salesperson, business development role, that type of thing, then go start a show on something you completely geek out on. And the cool thing about that, let's say you are a financial advisor and you start a go-kart podcast.
Yeah.
You can go back to your company and say, hey, would you sponsor this?
Yep.
And now you've got a revenue stream coming in for the podcast, but you've got one of the greatest business development tools in the world because, Mike, I'm sure you've experienced this.
Yep.
You want to get into a company and you haven't maybe broke through. You reach out and say, hey, I have a podcast that does this, reaches this audience. I'd love to interview you on the show. And boom, instant conversation because you have something they need. They need exposure. They need brand awareness. And
it's just a modern way of connecting it. And what I always try and do, Donnie, is asking people to back up a little bit when there's something profound comes up. Because, people are driving in the cars and sometimes listen to audiobooks, sort of half geeking out on this and geeking out and listening to the shows and things like that. So sometimes it's missed. Think about it, guys, what Donnie's just said. How many times have you rung that CEO or that sales director or that, chairman or finance director, ops director, HR director, call it what you want, C-suite level, maybe even middle management, doesn't matter. And they keep brushing you off. They won't take the call. You're not really getting forward. I'm sure you've seen it, what I call the sterile, the stale and sterile salespeople who just keep ringing. Oh, I'll ring in 3 months. I'll ring in 3 months. For what? For what is going to change?
Right.
And they're pretty poor salespeople. But that aside, that's not the topic. But how many times as listeners have you tried to break through into that account? Well, listen to just what Donnie's just said there about, Donnie, can you just repeat that for the audience, please, where you say about reach out and sort of what we're about, you're waxing their ego to a degree.
Absolutely,
Just cover that for us again, just so the listeners get it.
Absolutely. So think about it, just set the stage. What Mike said is if you need to get somebody and you really wanted to get into a dynamic conversation, if you were to create a podcast, a live show, Facebook Live, Instagram Live, LinkedIn Live, wherever you can get it, now you have what's leverage. You have something they need exposure, they need awareness, they need brand awareness. If you have one of those shows, you can simply reach out and say, hey, I have a show that I'd love to interview you on. Let's put it into a funny perspective. Let's say you're in Fort Worth, Texas. There's a lot of country boys, hunters, fishermen. Let's say you started a fly fishing show. Okay. And I'm just pulling this out of my rear end, but let's say you start a fly fishing show. Now go through your Rolodex, find every CEO in town that's into fly fishing. And you call them up and you say, hey, I'd love to interview you on my fly fishing show. Never once talk business, never once bring up your business. I just want to interview you on my fly fishing show. The crazy thing is, it's probably one of their favorite hobbies. They're going to say, absolutely. You now get an hour to sit down with this CEO, executive, whatever else, to connect and bond over fly fishing. It's the silliest thing, and I don't understand why more people don't do it.
Yeah.
There's some fears. Don't go into podcasting to make money. Yeah. And this is what I tell everybody. You'll make money because of podcasting, not from
byproduct of it. Yes. It's like the cause and effect of
I tell everybody, for me, it's the tip of the spear for the marketing machine, right? This is the brand awareness builder. This is why we just launched a second show. We just launched your High Vibe Business, a focus on getting out there. Because I want more things out in the marketplace so people are getting known and introduced to my brand and everything else.
Yeah, so it's amazing. And thanks for recovering that with the fly fishing example as well. Yeah. It's amazing. So I hope you've got that, guys, and you see the power of that. Now, the thing to say is you've got to provide value. You can't just do one and then cheat and then be underhanded with it. You've got to provide value. I see my podcast, I'm sure Donnie does it with his shows. It's like a public service as well. I'm helping my audience. I'm helping my tribe. I'm helping, Donnie's experience, all the guest experience, sharing and giving him there. And if that's part of the public service, but you're right, it's the spear of the tip of the marketing machine. Yeah. Which is
well, and you got to go into it with the spirit of I'm providing value to people.
Yes,
and I always tell people, run your show like it's the Thursday night 7:00, special that everybody wants to tune into. Stay consistent, get in the game, produce great content, do great marketing for it, and run it like a business, and you'll find success.
We operate on various systems, HubSpot, we've got ClickUp, we've got Teamwork systems in our agency sides, but the biggest thing that we're running is Slack. And in Slack, we have all our client, call whatever the client name is. And then we have client, the open mic. And we actually class the open mic podcast show, even though it's us and we own it, as a client. And we deliver it as if we were getting technically paid for producing the show, which is, and that's the mindset that we have with it. And, down at the show books, the follow-up, the content, the landing pages, how we distribute it, the production that we put behind it. And it is a big discipline for us, but it's the best thing. And the best part of the week is working on the open mic. I just absolutely come alive in it, and it's my time that I get to meet great people like yourself, Donnie. And the other thing as well, and it's something that we've not touched on, but I also use it as an education. I'm speaking to Donnie, I'm learning off him every day. I'm improving myself, my development. I've spoken with some amazing A-list, world-class talent, and how do I get those for an hour? Wow, I'm going to interview them. I'm going to, give them the respect and give the exposure, all that. But I'm learning as well, which is an amazing experience. And, you get connected to other people as well, which is a global network.
Absolutely brilliant. I'm very cognizant of my guests and the people who listen to the show. So a lot of times we're asking questions, what areas of your business would you like help on? Yeah. And a lot of times I'll go find, because getting guests on shows is the easiest thing in the world. I don't know why people struggle with it, but and I'll go find somebody who's an expert in said topic. And bring them on the show. And it's amazing, because I get to learn right along as I'm geeking out with my fans, having the conversation, But the other thing I wanted to throw out there that I forgot to mention is if you're trying to increase your public speaking, and get more speaking opportunities, go launch a flipping podcast.
Absolutely.
Because people want to hear you speak. They want to hear how you're going to interact. And I'm podcasting, you can have a script and you can have kind of set questions, but man, you got to be quick on your feet. Yeah. Because you got to creep up with the other person, the other dialogue, keep it going, remember things that have been said, which you've done an amazing job by, Mike.
Oh, thank you.
But it's a great way for people to find your message, if you're trying to get on more stages and stuff. And it's helped me tremendously.
Amazing. And thank you for bringing that up. That's, great advice. So guesting on podcasts, naturally you're on my podcast. I would love to return the favor at any time in the future. Sure. If there's any value that I can offer your audience, of course.
I doubt it, but we can try it. Don't get it.
But obviously, it's not just about hosting podcasts. Like I say, it's about adding value, taking time out, like you've taken time out of your day. Just to be clear, we don't pay the guest to come on. It's all, voluntary. It's getting that in. So
I thought you were going to pay. I thought you told me 10 grand.
10 grand.
Right. Come on. Oh, wait. Was it 10 quid? I forget. I never know how that works. No.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the serious side, guys, the guests, it's not only the time that you put in, the guests who's put in the time and they appreciate it. So, you've got to do that. But talk to us a little bit about your experiences about, how it complements your own show, like working with people like us and other shows that you've been on.
So what I learned really quickly from my shows, one of the fastest way to grow a podcast and to grow your audience was going and guesting on other shows. Because you go tell your message to an audience that is already in the podcast.
And they're used to it.
So they're already consuming, they're already into it, and they find out you have a show. There's a good chance that they're going to come check out your podcast. So I went on a mission to figure out, okay, what's the process to really get on shows and how do you simplify it? And it's really, really, really simple. If you want to get on podcasts, all you got to do is go to Google, type in whatever your industry is, and use the word podcast. It's really that simple. So if you're
fly fishing podcasts,
exactly, fly fishing, go-kart racing, but you can, in business-wise, you can do manufacturing, you can do sales, you can do marketing, you can do IT, information systems, you name it. There's over 700,000 podcasts in the marketplace, right? There's a show created for whatever it is you geek out on. And I promise you, if you go do the things you geek out on, you'll get more exposure for your business and what you do than going after just the industry stuff. But it's really, really simple to get on a show. And this is how I do it. I will go find a podcast that I want to be on. I will literally sit down during my commute or whatever else, listen to 2 or 3 episodes, and I'm going to take some pretty damn good notes based off of what they said.
Do your homework.
Yep. Then I'm going to go to the website, wherever that podcast is hosted, not the podcast host like iTunes or anything else, the actual website where it's hosted. And there's going to be a contact me in there somewhere. And I'm going to send a message off, and I'm going to spend the first 50% of that email bragging about how awesome that host is, how amazing their show is, how many people I've already told about it, and what I got out of particular industries, and how I left them a review on iTunes and Apple Podcast and Google Podcast, and that I'm just totally geeked out on their show. And I am going to make them feel like the greatest person that ever walked the face of the earth. Then I'm going to make sure I've done my homework enough to know how my story resonates with their show.
That's the key thing, that connection.
Yep. And then I'm going to say, here's literally 2 lines, my story. 20 years sales guy, bet on himself, launched his own company, failed miserably, found podcasting, saved his business. I would love to come on your show and talk about these 3 key points. Yeah. Right? And if you follow that format, guys.
It's amazing. So simple, but so effective.
Yep. And because here's what we get as Podcast Coast is we're, and Mike, I'm sure you're getting the same thing. We're getting PR companies sending us emails all the time. We're inundated with crappy outreaches. A guaranteed way to never get on my podcast is start off with, hey, I just wrote a book and I'd love to come talk about it on your show.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Self-promoter.
Yeah, I don't care. So it's all about how do you genuinely bring value to that host's audience.
Yes, it.
Because a good host, he's going to know how to guide the story, guide the guidelines, allow you to promote yourself where you don't come across like a jerk, that you're overselling your stuff. It's a natural flow part of the process. And if you come out the gate swinging like, hey, I just want to use this to sell my crap, you're never going to get on the shows.
No, and the ones that you will get on, people go and listen. What have you been? Oh, I suddenly guested on this podcast. You go and have a quick listen, and then you feel it's all about sell. Yeah. It's not the way. And, I think it's so simple what Donnie said then. It's amazing. So thanks for sharing with it. But it does take work. And, always respect the podcast host's time. It costs a lot of money for us to produce the Open Mic podcast show. If you look at the hourly rate of the people involved, the show, the graphic designers, the people who put the books together, getting it on all the channels, distributing
the editing and everything.
Editing, video editing, getting all the guests, and, if you just want to come and self-promote, that's called paid advertising, guys. You know what I mean? Yeah. But, if you want to come and deliver value, don't just look at the host as Donnie says, well, look at how you can bring value for that audience. And you go with that approach, you're going to get asked. Instead of you asking to go on, they're going to be asking you to come on.
And look, if you want to just sell your crap on a podcast, every podcaster would be willing to take your money and run a commercial of some sort on their podcast. Absolutely. So reach out and say, hey, here's $5,000. I want to run some ads on your show. Okay, cool. Let's talk.
That's that. Don't get that. But there's no silver bullet where you're just going to come and sell and spew all over the audience for free. That's it. But no, that's great. And of course, like you say, it complements your own show. But I think also as well, what I see is that it shows you your profession. If you're a podcaster yourself, by then appearing on there, I think that there's automatically that, that community respect that this guy's a podcaster, this girl's a podcaster, this team's a podcaster, the my tribe. And you talked about geeking out, whether it's go-karts, fly fishing, whatever it was earlier on. That podcaster community is geeking out as well, isn't it?
Yep.
It's that niche within a niche that is growing out there. So it does elevate your professional sort of, not acceptance, maybe that's the wrong word, but, I think if a podcaster came to me and said, Mike, I'm running the show, maybe we could look at something working together, you're going to take time out for that person.
Yes.
You respect they're already in that space. So great tips there, and love the simplicity. So. Yeah. You mentioned earlier, certainly off air as well, Donnie, which obviously, because I know you do the daily LinkedIn Lives and things like that. But you mentioned that, Facebook groups and Facebook is a big kick for you. That's where, a lot of drivers come from. How do you grow your fan base and increase participation linked into all this using things like Facebook groups? Yeah,
so it was something we kind of stumbled on. When we launched the show, one of my teammates said, hey, you should launch a Facebook group. And I'm like, why? Nobody does business on Facebook. And because my mindset was business was done on LinkedIn, not Facebook.
Yep.
And He said, yeah, but your fans want to come together. They want to talk about the show. They want to talk about the guests. So on a whim, we launched, the Success Champions Facebook group, and it took off. We were surprised that so many people wanted to talk about the show, and then it grew beyond the show, and they wanted to talk about how to grow businesses and, and things themselves. So all of a sudden I looked down and we had 500 members sitting in a Facebook group that were at 90% engagement. And we hadn't done a whole lot of work to build this thing. And I looked at the team, I'm like, if they're into the message, they're into getting together and collaborating, we need to figure out how to turn this into a revenue model for our company. And so we started trying a few things, and they flopped miserably, a little ebooks and things like that.
Trial and errors, yeah.
Yeah. And what we finally found is we started launching masterminds.
Yeah.
And it was really unique because most of the people that were listening to the show were business owners. But these business owners, were small business owners and didn't have a way to collaborate. So we started creating masterminds and whatnot, which allowed us to bring these people together, and then those started scaling. But I say all that to say is to build the group, all we did is create a place where like-minded people could hang out.
It's a watering hole, isn't it?
Yep. And there's a couple of key things. One, I think every business at this point should have some sort of Facebook group that's attached to their business, their podcast, their marketing arm, their sales arm. But even so, I think every salesperson should have their own group that they're running as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because you can get direct conversations with the people that are into whatever you're into, and they're really easy to grow. The first thing you absolutely got to do is when you think about naming your group, you got to name it what people are searching for.
Yeah, the benefit.
Yep. And you got to name it to know your avatar, know who that ideal client is, but know exactly what they're searching for, and name your group that, and then start providing value. And you'll be amazed that, I call my company Success Champions because I believe everybody should be the champion of their success.
Yeah.
But I also believe that you should be creating other champions that want to carry your brand and message out there.
And nurture, absolutely.
Yep. So if you start providing real content and real value, people will start telling other people about your group, and then it's going to start growing and growing and growing. And we found, I just gave a speech last week down in this week down in San Antonio, Texas. And, there's 150 people in the room. I just put a call at the end of it. Hey, everybody break out your phone, type in the word Success Champions on your phone, go to groups. And we had 38 people out of that room immediately join the group. I mean, and it's little tricks like that. If you have a podcast, put a call out there. Hey, if you like the show, you should come hang out in the Facebook group.
Yeah. Amazing.
And it just gives you a place, I like the term watering hole, where you can talk directly to your people.
Absolutely. And it's where everybody congregates. And, I'll tell you, slightly off script as well here, to a degree. Facebook group being Facebook group, we know what that is. Well, LinkedIn has groups, doesn't it? But why do you think that they don't take off maybe as well as Facebook? Maybe it's an unfair question. You've not prepped for it.
No.
I'm just asking you out of curiosity.
I have a theory. Yeah, no, I have a theory. It's because LinkedIn pulled everything away from them.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, groups was the only thing you did on LinkedIn, a few years back. And everybody, was talking about, if you want to find success on LinkedIn, you have to have a group.
Yeah.
Well, at some point, LinkedIn felt like, I think this is my theory, they felt like they lost control of the conversation. Right. And they couldn't figure out how to make the advertising dollars and everything off of people hiding in the groups.
So they're getting them back into the feed and out of the groups.
Yep.
Yeah, got it.
Yep.
Got it.
So they brought them all back in. I mean, I got invited to a group the other day, and I got to be honest, I didn't know LinkedIn still had groups.
Yeah, they're still there. I don't still think they're very popular, are they?
But if you look at your feed, they're not even showing up in your feed. So until LinkedIn does like Facebook and puts groups back up in the header, they're dead.
Yeah.
Because it just shows LinkedIn does not care about groups. And what is sad is they haven't figured out that people want to hang out in their tribes, whatever you want to call them.
It's interesting. We chose a different sort of way to go with groups, and we've not put as much effort as we should have behind it. As core, we've got as exec business, we've got as agency business, we've run the podcast, we've got speaking, things like that. But we moved over to a private app group. So we took it away from Facebook to get a lot more control. And we have a product called the Growth Engine Community. And it's growing slowly. I think if we treat it like its client, like we said before, we'd do a lot better with it and just have a play about with it. And it's been slow, not necessarily slow against Facebook, what we did before, but just what's your view on that? Do you think there's mileage in taking stuff into what I'd call private app private app groups as opposed to the mainstream Facebook, which gives you more controls? There's more data, more analytics, we're control. We can put paid membership courses in there, things like that. There's all sorts of things that we can do in this app. By the way, just out of transparency for the listeners and yourself, Donnie, the app is Mighty Networks. So if you go and search Mighty Networks, it's like $500-600 for a pro account. You don't get a branded icon, but you get it all branded inside. It's desktop, it's mobile. And then there's just some pretty cool stuff in there. So have you come across them? Have you seen any success in those?
There's a couple of other free apps out there, like MeWe's one that's out there that it works kind of like Facebook with the forum. Yeah. What I've found is I've got several friends that are trying to pull off of Facebook in particular to do the same thing, control their own groups. Yeah. The difficulty is people have already been trained to play on Facebook.
Yeah, agreed.
So it's
just it's brainwash type of things. Facebook's on the phone. It's always open, isn't it?
Yep. And so they're always consuming it. So it's not that they don't want to come over to another app, is you're reconfiguring behavior.
Yeah.
And they're naturally programmed because of everything they're doing to go and do, because if they're older, they're checking on the grandkids, if they're middle-aged, they're hanging out with their buddies, if they're military, they're in their private groups, doing the bad jokes and all that stuff. Right. So it's more about your getting them to reprogram something that's already become a behavior. If you want to get really, mindset technical, they've already freaking regrooved some of their brain to get that, adrenaline rush off of somebody commenting and liking on their Facebook post. You're fighting against that natural mindset to get them to go and try
into a different medium. Interesting.
So that's why you'll see, like right now, the fastest growing social media thing is TikTok.
Yeah.
Which is funny, is it used to be Midgley. Midgley completely died. They rebranded, they renamed, and you always know when a social media platform is going to take off when the kids get on it. And so the kids got on it, and it just went nuts. And there's a lot of business owners like me. I'm like, man, I don't want to do a stupid video. I don't want to get on TikTok, but there's a point of, that's brand awareness, but even so, can you transition wherever your current audience is over to a new medium?
Yeah,
or do you have to go after it as I've got to find a new audience in this new particular medium. Mm-hmm. So I would be more curious, instead of pulling people off of Facebook, is if I could take the people who are anti-Facebook and then bring them to the group.
That's interesting.
And that's how I would try and build it versus trying to fight against the machine.
Yeah, you're never going to win, are you?
Yeah.
$1 zillion business. Yeah, great sense. So as we wrap out, Donnie, we've talked about mindset a while. We've referenced the marine stuff, which is, hats off to you, and to all the veterans. I'm one of those guys who says, I can't be told what to do in the military and things like that.
I wasn't either. I never said I was a good Marine.
No, but the fact that you got in, the fact that I don't think I'd have even cleared the first interview or something. I'd apologize for that. But so my hats go out to you and all the other veterans. And I interviewed a lady called Melissa Aff stuff, and she does a lot with the veterans and things like that. Oh, she's an amazing lady, Melissa, and what she does over there. So a big credit to that. But I reference that for the mindset purely and simply because I think it's a special type of person, and I've employed ex-military people when they've come back out into Civistry, and they are a cut of up. They're on time, they're dedicated, they're focused. They're all in, if that makes sense. They're the team players. It's very rare that they're selfish and things like that. So that's why I reference it. But when you talk about mindset, and I'm just keen as we wrap up, it gets banded about maybe too cheaply for my mind, the word mindset. And what does it mean to you? And for the listeners, they may be already successful at whatever level. Our listener base is not all losers and then flat out.
Right.
There's a really successful. But the point I'm saying is, mindset. What does it mean to you? And if the listener needs a recharge, or the listener needs to reframe themselves, or reinvent themselves, a little bit like you did when the light switch went on, what is the mindset to success these days?
Yeah, a couple of things. Well, the first thing that came to mind is Peter Dinklage. So Peter Dinklage gave one of the greatest commencement speeches for his old university that I've ever seen, and his whole speech is good, but it's about a 2-minute segment that he has in there. And if you just go to YouTube, you type in Peter Dinklage fail better, you'll find this portion of the speech I'm talking about. But when he's on there and he's talking about his story of trying to break into the acting field, and he was failing miserably. He was doing odd jobs until he finally said, and he was trying to fight this little person syndrome where they only wanted him to play, a little person roles and all that. And he finally said, heck with it. I'm just going to take whatever role comes after me and go after it. But during this 2-minute segment, he starts talking about, look, guys, you got to go through life and fail. And when he first starts saying it, I'm like, here we go again. I've heard this 100 times. But he says a portion of it that I hadn't heard before. And he says, fail better, fail more. And it was an interesting concept for me because I hadn't been looking at my life attempting to fail. Attempting to try something new so I can get better at failing at it to learn from it. And it was a brilliant twist on the words that just hit home for me. And so I started using it with my company and my team is instead of how do we try that, is how do we fail better at doing that, right? How do we go into it and purposely know it's going to break, but to learn from it from that break.
Yep.
And trying to take your life from that entire perspective. So for me, mindset isn't the I feel good, I like me. Mindset is knowing that you're going to get punched in the face by life and stepping forward. Rocky Balboa, greatest quote of all times. It's not how hard you can hit. It's how hard you can take a hit and keep moving forward. Yeah. And it's what I keep telling my followers, my listeners, the people, your community is as you're on the journey, mindset is easy to flip if you'll only remind yourself of one phrase. And that phrase is simply this. This is that moment. This is that moment you've read about in the books, you've seen in the movies, you heard in the biographies and the stories. This is that moment when they wanted to throw in the towel, give everything up, call it quits. This is that moment you heard them say, I'm so glad I hung on for just a little bit longer.
Yeah,
because if you tell yourself that, you'll be okay and you're going to keep pushing forward. And that's been the theme of my business through all the tough times, the ups and downs is I keep telling myself is someday I'm going to be on the stage going, let me tell you about this moment I just held on a little bit longer.
A little bit longer. Amazing. That's absolute gold. For the listeners, please write that down. Please tweet it. If we could get a hashtag around that, hashtag I just hung on a little bit longer. You'd probably do the character count, but that's amazing. No, and it is so true, isn't it? And there is so much attention, noise, and demand and pressure in modern day life. We started at the top of the show, didn't we, about things move so fast, it's light speed, it's this, that, the other. And it's so easy just to sort of give in and think that the world's bigger. And, even when you're talking about podcasting, you start your little show. I mean, I'll be totally honest with you, Donnie, the first 10 episodes of my show, barring probably one, they absolutely sucked. With no structure, with no thought. It was awful. And I even at the time, I said to the team, should we take them down and then just sort of start season 11 as episode 1? I said, no, leave them up. It constantly reminds me that, we hung in there. Yeah. And from 11 to 15, we started to get the format right. some good guests, better guests come on, 15 to 24, a bit better. And then we said, oh, sorry, we're just going to reach out to some bigger guests. And a hero of mine in sales is a guy called Skip Miller, at M3 Learning up in San Francisco and that area. And I just reached out, I've bought his courses, I've got all his books. I just reached out to him. And the guy said, yeah, I'll come on your podcast. I ended up interviewing Skip Miller when he was in the Presidio at San Francisco, just outside of the Golden Gate. And then it's like, well, if I can get this guy on, who else can I get on? And you just keep going. And then, and every season it just, we think, I mean, no disrespect to the earlier guests that we had, that were fantastic. They helped us build the show, but the confidence comes, the structure comes, the association comes, and you keep getting better. And we hung in on the podcast. And the first year we were rubbish, but we did more podcasts. I think you're about episode 56 or 57 now. And, I've got a blog in the can now talking about what I learned from doing my first 50 podcasts. And that is one hell of a blog that's coming out, because the knowledge I've learned, not just about podcasting, but the experience, the knowledge, the guests, for kind influencers like yourself who are coming on is amazing. And, it is a great thing. So I love the segment. So if you're out there, guys, and you are struggling, girls out there struggling, shoot us a message, use the hashtag The Open Mic. You can use the hashtag Success Champion, hashtag Donnie Boivin, hashtag Champion of Success. We'll get all these, posted in the show notes as well. If you want to reach out and connect with Donnie, that would be great. And where's the best place for people to catch you, Donnie? You mentioned Facebook. Is that going to be the best? Or LinkedIn Lives? Where can people reach you? Where would you prefer to be contacted? Yeah,
so there's a couple of fun things they can do. My favorite one is, if this is okay, they can send me a text to 817-318.
Let me just get 817-318. Yeah,
6030. And if they'll send me the word success in a text, I'll send them back an actual workbook.
Yep.
That gives them the 5 greatest tips to try and achieve work-life balance. And it walks through. And it's an actual full-on workbook. It's free. It'll cost you an email, of course, but yeah, it's 817-318-6030, and just send the word success. And that's the easiest way to get my rotation. You can also find me on Facebook, find the group Success Champions. That's where everybody hangs out.
Yeah.
And I love to hear back from you guys. If there was a point of this message that resonated with you, if you had questions about something I said, guys, reach out to Mike and say, hey, Mike, I want to start with Mike at first. And, I don't like going on any podcast without doing this. Guys, do me one favor for Mike. Go give him a review on this show. If you got one golden nugget on this thing, go leave him a review. You guys don't understand that as podcasters, reviews, likes, downloads, and shares, those are gold for us.
Yep.
So if you got any value out of this whatsoever, tell one friend about this, because the more lives that can hear Mike's message and the guests he brings on, the more people that can be inspired to go for it, step into their greatness, and do the things they need to do. So go support Mike wherever you listen to him. Leave him a review and share it with a guest for him.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Donnie. And by the same, please check out the Success Champions podcast. We're going to get all those links put in the show. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, Donnie. So much value. And we've talked about so much, and me going off script as usual. The regular listeners always know I go off script. And, not that I actually have a script. I've got a framework, but you go from there.
Right.
If we were to condense this down, and people are coming right in the back end of the show, the key sort of strategies for business development and everything that we've talked about, how would we condense those down, Donnie? What would the 3 be in your mindset that people should focus and concentrate on?
Absolutely. So for business development, have an absolute vision in your business. Where's it going?
Yeah.
Have the milestones that are your stepping stones to get there.
Yeah.
And then measure 3 major behaviors that are out front of your company getting you to a sales conversation.
Yeah, brilliant. That's fantastic. I really appreciate it. As I say, we'll post the links in. Just search Success Champions on all the channels. Donnie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. I know we're slightly overrun, but let's let it run because there's so much value there. It's been an absolute honor having you on the show. Have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for contributing to the Open Mic.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother. I'd be honored.
That's great, and we appreciate your time as well. We understand that you've got a lot of choice out there, and the time that you take to listen to the show. As always, we appreciate you tuning in, continuing your growth engine development. So as always, to get in the game, go do the hustle, go make it happen, and we're going to see you on another Open Mic podcast real soon.
You have been listening to The Open Mic, brought to you by the Success Hub. To find out more and to get the resources we have mentioned in this podcast episode, simply visit blog.thesuccesshub.io and view the podcast section. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to catching up with you in our next episode. This podcast and associated materials is published under copyright to The Success Hub. All rights reserved. No reproduction of this material is permitted.